All right, let's find the formula for a tangent graph. So we have a graph given to us, and we want to come up with the formula or the equation of the function that would produce this graph. So it's obviously a periodic function, keeps repeating itself. Let's just focus on the first period or this middle one as it's graphed out here. So things we have to be careful about on this are any kind of vertical shifts, horizontal shifts, changes to our a stretching factor or a compression factor, or a change in our period. So let's start out by saying the key points I want to focus on. It looks like this is still at the origin for the middle, directly in between our two vertical asymptotes going on here. It looks like that's at the origin. So I'm visualizing this graph as it hasn't been picked up and moved to the right or to the left because it's still centered right here at the origin. So I'm not going to have to worry about a phase shift, a number attached directly to X on the inside here, being added or subtracted. The next key points that I want to focus on are point on the graph directly in between this key point and the vertical asymptote. We can look at to the right and to the left if we would like. So in picking this out, I think that we can say, well, for that point directly in between, in this case 0 and pi over 4, our vertical asymptote, it looks like we have this key point on our graph. All right, so that key point has a y value of 4. What that's indicating to us is that we have a stretching factor of 4 that should be attached out in front to the entire function. All right, I also know that this is not going to be a -4 because our graph is increasing the entire way. For the entirety of this graph, it's increasing. If it were to have been flipped upside down or inverted or vertically reflected, that would be a negative. But because this is increasing, I'm pretty sure that's going to be a +4 out here. All right. It also doesn't appear that this graph has been moved up or moved down, mainly because this middle point here is still at the origin. So what that tells me is we don't have a number added or subtracted from the entire function. So the only other thing we need to really concern ourselves with is our period has changed from being the regular pi. So let's focus on the period. All right, the period for tangent is typically pi. However, if we have a multiple, I'm just using b to be this multiple on the inside here, that can change our period. So our typical calculation, how you get the period is you take pi divided by that multiple on the inside. And we can say that based on our graph, the period here goes from this first time through, we could say from -pi over 4 to +pi over 4. So that's pi over 4 on each side here. So what we want to do is add those together. So if you take 1/4 of a pi, you add another 1/4 of a pi, we get 1/2 of a pi or pi over 2. All right, the next thing we want to do is we have an equation here that involves this b that we're trying to solve for. Let's go ahead and try to solve this equation for b. So we can't solve for b while it's in the denominator. So my first operation is going to be, I'm going to multiply by b to get it out of the denominator. This will leave us with pi equals pi over 2 times b. Next thing I'm going to go ahead and do is multiply each side by 2 because we don't like fractions, and I get that. So we need to eliminate that fraction on the right-hand side by multiplying by 2. So we have pi over 2 equals pi times b. And then to get b all by itself, we'll divide both sides by pi. So that'll allow us to isolate the b on one side all by itself. As we have pi in the numerator and pi in the denominator, that makes a 1. So we're going to get b equals 2. So our final function here, as we plug that back in, we get 4 times tangent of 2 gets replaced in for the b, and we bring the x along. So that's the function that we were looking for that would produce this graph. We can call it f of x or y, whatever you want to name this function, but that should produce this graph that we were given on the left-hand side. All right, hope this makes sense as we're going through these steps on trying to come up with the equation or function based on the graph itself. All right, good luck as you're working on them.